Chapter. Start off with a roll call.
Great, thank you, sir. We'll do the roll call and then we will move directly into the statement of necessity. Mr. Tibbs.
Here.
Mr. Versailles.
Here.
Brickta.
Here.
Mr. Parker.
Here.
Okay.
Here.
I heard you. Thank you, sir. Mr.
Okay.
Campbell.
Here.
Doss.
Here.
Mr. Thompson.
Here.
Okay. Mr. Wagster.
Here.
Mr. Heathcote.
I am here.
And Mr. King. All right. I don't believe Mr. King is currently on the call with us, but we'll proceed without him. He should probably log in anytime now. Good morning. Actually, for the record, I would like to say that today is Thursday, December 3rd, 2020, and this is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Architects and Engineers Board of Examiners. And if we could get the board attorney, Maria Bush, to give us a statement of necessity, we can proceed.
Thanks, Michael. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Tennessee Board of Architectural and Engineer Examiners, which is taking place by electronic means utilizing the WebEx teleconference application on Thursday, December 3rd, 2020. As there is not a physical quorum present, a statement of necessity is read into the record and filed with the Tennessee Secretary of State as required by statute. Pursuant to TCA 844-108B2, if a physical quorum is not present at the location of a meeting of a governing body, then in order for a quorum of members to participate by electronic or other means of communication, the governing body must make a determination that a necessity exists. That determination must include a recitation of the facts and circumstances on which it was based. Further, TCA 844-108A3 defines necessity as matters to be considered by the governing body at that meeting require timely action by the body, that physical presence by a quorum of the members is not practical within the period of time requiring action, and that participation by a quorum of the members by electronic or other means of communications is necessary. As stated, this is a regularly scheduled meeting for the Tennessee Board of Architectural and Engineer Examiners. The purpose of this meeting with members attending by teleconference is to address regularly scheduled matters of the board in the most safe manner due to COVID-19. All voting will be conducted by roll call. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Maria. Mr. Tibbs.
Okay. Next on the agenda is Acknowledgement of Guest.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm going to let you do that.
I think I'd just like to acknowledge. Hold on, I'm picking up an echo. Casey, I believe that's, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it was my echo. It's Casey, I'm here.
We'd like to acknowledge the members of our professional societies. We'll be hearing from them momentarily. And I believe we have some other, Mr. Waltney from Lipscomb University. And I believe that is all for a guest at the moment. So with that, I don't have any pressing announcements to make at the time. Are there any review or agenda changes that anyone would like to put forward?
Okay. If there's no, sorry. If there's no agenda, if there's no agenda changes, let's get started with the minutes from October 2020 board meeting. I'm sorry.
Morgan, could you please mute yourself? Oh, thank you.
Do we have a motion to approve our last month's meeting minutes?
This is Frank. I move that we approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
Okay.
This is Robert. I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll do vote by roll call.
Yeah, that's good. I'm good for one mute a day. Mr. Tibbs.
Here. I mean, yes.
Mr. Bursai,
Yes.
Mr. Brickta,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Ms. Doss,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
and Mr. Wagster.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, next are the professional reports. Michael, you might be able to see them better. Who's all here? Do you mind leading that part?
Not at all. As of now, I can see Casey and let's see, Don Baltimore. So, Mr. Baltimore, why don't you go ahead and kick off the professional society reports?
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's doing okay and has been since our last meeting. I don't have a lot to report. And for the record, it's Don Baltimore with the Tennessee Interior Design, Education, and Advocacy. We watch the state elections with interest, and mostly we have the same legislators as previously, but we're willing to work again with them and the new legislators that have been elected. Also, we look forward to working with the other professions regulated by this board and this board in any upcoming legislative issues in the future. So other than that, my report's pretty much short and sweet, and we want to wish everybody happy holidays, and we all get through this little extra kick of the pandemic together. So no one has any questions. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Baltimore. Let's see, real quick before we move on to Casey Anderson, we just had somebody join us via phone. You're labeled as call-in user 3, but if you're on the phone, would you please identify yourself?
Hello, I think it's me. It's Ashley Cates with AIA Tennessee.
Great, thank you very much, Ashley. We'll have you go right after Casey.
Okay, thank you.
Casey, yours.
Okay, I apologize for the echo. It only happens on this computer on WebEx for some reason, so none of the other systems. So my apologies ahead of time. Casey Anderson, I am the Executive Director of the American Council of Engineering Companies of Tennessee and the Tennessee Society of Professional Engineers. Excited to tell you that we have, gosh, I should have looked this morning. I think 200 and something folks going to risk management seminars online today that Risk Strategies is doing. So excited about that. They're going to have really good, here's some really good risk changes in risk that have come up through COVID. So I think that'll be an excellent meeting. And I'm sorry for those of you who are at the AE board today and were not able to attend that. We are ethics our TSPE chapter in Memphis is doing an ethics seminar next week. We are going to do additional ethics seminars that are different from the Memphis one across the state that will probably happen in February, but we're working on those right now. The National Society of Professional Engineers has just hired someone whose full-time job is ethics. And so we're going to have her run some meetings for us just to get folks those credit hours, but B, also some good information that we hope will help them professionally down the road. We've got a senior principals forum for ACEC, senior principals and ACEC member firms that will be happening on January 8th, leading up to the legislative session, which starts January the 12th at noon. Really looking forward to a different year. It's going to be a tough year, and we're going to do our best to advocate on behalf of the engineers across the state in these difficult times. There will not be a day on the Hill or a lot of opportunities for members and registrants to come down there. They of course are welcome to come down and make meetings and such on their own, but we are being encouraged not to encourage that. So trying to keep the Hill as safe as possible. this year. So that's all I really have. And I apologize to the engineering committee for having to leave early yesterday, but I'm assuming in your report today, I will get my direction. So I'm happy to help in any way that I can. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Casey. Let's see, we have Ashley Cates from AIA.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ashley Cates. I'm with AIA Tennessee, Executive Vice President. And this year, we're kind of winding down. We're excited to the fact that we were able to still continue to give our members continuing education throughout the year through online courses. And we just recently sent out an on-demand library for the attendees from our virtual conference this summer. So if they missed a session, they can repeat it. And then our members also have access to be able to go in and sign up if they weren't able to attend the conference during those specific dates. They can still go on demand and pull some courses out that they need. So local components will be working to provide as much CE as possible before the end of the year. And then the Risk Strategies Roadshow is some LU too. It's not HSW, but it's LU, and it will be helpful for anyone that needs continuing education. On the legislative front next year, in lieu of the Day on the Hill, we will be working to figure out contacts to reach out to legislators and on a program. But we are going to focus on an advocacy program called Speak Up. AIA National did it across the nation, and so we're going to hone it in for a Tennessee session, a Tennessee event. And so we'll be pulling that information together and have a little more for you at the next meeting. Additionally, we're going to be putting our full support behind Tennessee Higher Education Commission, some of their proposed projects, as well as the Department of General Services projects to continue moving in improvements on capital projects and capital maintenance. And then we're going to be coming back with the coalition for the historic tax credits and just continue that education process. Mayors and cities across the state have begun to sign on to it. They were supportive of it last year, and they're stepping up to take a bigger role this year in that agenda. So other than that, we're just kind of also looking at all the defensive legislation that we may have to posture for this next session and getting ready to have 21 come as soon as possible. That's it for.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you, Ashley. Let's see. I think that is it for our professional societies. I would like to take a moment just to recognize for the record that Mr. King has joined the call, and we now have a full complement of board members on this or in this meeting. With that, Mr. Tibbs.
Michael,
sir.
Michael, this is Robert Campbell. I'm sorry to interrupt, and something that we didn't announce, or maybe we're going to. I think I just texted you. Kathy Ware obviously has resigned, and we have in the past made a resolution or done some board action to recognize people's service. So I just want to get that. It doesn't have to be today, but get that on our agenda, please, for next month or next time before I forget.
Absolutely. I will thank you for bringing that to my attention, and I am making a note of that right now.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, thank you, Robert. So I guess we're ready for the legal case reports now.
This is Stuart Huffman. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll get started with the legal report. Number 1, 2020074361. The complainant is alleging the respondent is offering architectural services while unregistered. Complainant was contacted by a general contractor to make sense of drawings of a house that were drafted by the respondent. The general contractor was having issues with the foundation plan and some discrepancies to the first floor. wants the respondent appears to be a house plan provider. However, no plans were stamped, and it looks like that these are for construction purposes only. The website shows that the respondent is offering architectural services, and also mentions that they are an architectural designer, and the business is offering architectural services. This was reviewed by board member Frank Waxter. Mitigating factors did not stamp the plans, and they were for construction purposes only. The aggravating factor is offering architectural services without being registered. The recommendation is to authorize a civil penalty of $1,000 and demand that all appellations of architectural services and architect be removed from the website and other documentation.
All right, thank you. Any discussion?
Yeah, this is Frank. All I can say about this is this guy is a house plan designer, and that it's what I looked at was the usual set of house plans, and they just carry it through like floor plans and dimensions and elevations and that type thing. There are some detail, but all its details are qualified, I guess you'd say, by saying, it's like structure. It says structural needs to be reviewed by a structural engineer, electrical by electrical, so forth and so on. And so as far as this guy having some plans that were, not complete, it's just, to me, what I see is a typical thing you get from a house plan company. And so the only thing that he was doing that was objectionable in my opinion is in his website, he says he's providing architectural services, and he uses the word architect a few times. And so that's what I'm recommending the civil penalty of $1,000 is for.
Okay, that sounds like a good analysis. Do we have a motion out there or any more further comments?
I make a motion we accept the report.
This is Robert Campbell. I would second.
Okay, that's a motion and a proper second. We're ready for roll call vote.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Tibbs.
Yes.
Versailles.
Yes.
Mr. Bricktow.
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Ms. Doss.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Waxter.
Yes.
Thank
you. Motion carries. Ready for the next case.
Okay, number 22020071621. Respondent self-reported practicing on an expired license. The license expired on February 28, 2018. Respondent was inspected 28 ready mixed concrete plants. Each inspection required respondents to submit a report that the plant meets or exceeds specific standards for quality control. Respondent then stamped each certificate as true and accurate. This was reviewed by Alton Heathcote. Mitigating factors are self-reported. There's no history of discipline. Risks to the public were extremely low, and the aggravating factor performed engineering services while expired. The recommendation is to authorize a civil penalty of $2,800 for practicing on an expired license and pass the laws and rules exam.
All right. Thank you. Alton, do you have any other further comments or any other discussion?
I do. Thank you, Brian. There is another firm that I'm very familiar with here in town that performs the same type of services, and apparently a a licensed engineer is required to perform these tests on a regular basis for these mixed plants. In this particular case, I contacted, obviously I didn't tell them there was a complaint filed, but I asked them specifically what services they provided and what they performed and what a somewhat typical fee for the performance of those services would be. My contact at the other firm here in town said that they do hundreds of these a year. The fees are traditionally very low, other than when they have to travel extensively. And it's basically a quality control, reviewing testing procedures, ensuring that all the correct equipment is in place and it's calibrated correctly and things of that nature. I know what our normal civil penalties are, but in this particular case, according to my contact, there's an extremely low risk to the public's health, safety, and welfare. And I did not feel like the practice was severe enough to merit a $500 per incident penalty. Therefore, I'm recommending, as we have done in the past, a lesser penalty of $100 for each of the infractions.
Okay, thank you. Any more discussion or comments regarding that? Or motion?
This is Robert. I make a motion we approve.
This is Ricky. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, a proper second. Any more discussion? If not, roll call vote.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Tibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Bursai?
Yes.
Mr. Bricktow?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Ms. Doss?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson? Rick,
Yes.
couldn't quite. Okay, there you go.
I'm sorry, I double clicked.
Not a problem, sir. Mr. Wagster?
Yes.
Thank you. Stewart?
Number 3, 2020074831. This was also filed against with the Land Surveyors Board, this complaint. The respondent in this case is a licensed engineer that owns the company that was complained about in the Land Surveyors complaint. So really, to get into this, not too much, it was the complainant hired the company to do a land survey. And when we looked at this, the land surveyor expert found no violations of statutes or rules against the respondent company, and also that there was no engineering services provided in this complaint. This was reviewed by Robert Campbell, and like I said, there were no violations found and no engineering services provided with this, so our recommendation is to close.
Okay. Any discussion about that or motion?
This is Frank. I move to close.
This is Rick. I second that motion.
Okay, that's a motion, a proper second. Any more discussion? If not, roll call vote.
Mr. Tibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Bursai?
Yes.
Mr. Bricktow?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Ms. Doss?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Wagster?
Yes.
Thank you. Stewart?
Number 4, 2020079391. The respondent self-reported practicing on an expired license. License expired on May 31st, 2018. Respondent states their office did not receive the renewal letter because there's no street delivery. The respondent did provide the post office box information that was updated in our files to make sure that they do receive all of our correspondence. And the respondent made 23 HUD Foundation inspections of mobile homes that were required for FHA loans while expired. There were no design services made, and the inspections required to be performed by a registered engineer. Therefore, respondent sealed each one. This was reviewed by Alton Health Code. Mitigating factors are self-reported. There's no history of discipline. Aggravating factors or performing engineering services while expired. The recommendation was to authorize a civil penalty of $2,300 for practicing on an expired license and pass the laws and rules exam.
All right, thank you very much. Any discussion?
Yeah, Brian, this is Alton. Just as a sort of a recap. Well, I have a little bit of a problem with the fact that I know where this person lives. I looked it up on a map, and it is remote, and there is probably some possibility that he didn't receive the renewal notice. I know it's all of our responsibilities to ensure that we have whatever address is necessary to get that information to us. But there is, again, no history of poor performance or complaints against this person. Again, the typical fee for the review of one of these provision of service of one of these inspections is very low, and I mean like $400 to $500. I did consult with another individual who also performs similar services to confirm the regular fees. They're in accordance with the scale that HUD provides, I think, as part of the International Building Code. I don't think the offense rises to the level of a $500 per incident civil penalty. Therefore, I'm recommending a lower penalty per incident of $100, similar to our case number 2 that we've discussed today and previous cases that we've had similarly in the past.
Thank you, Alton. Any discussion or about that?
Brian, this is Robert Campbell. Alton, we do have evidence that he actually did the inspections, correct?
That's correct, Robert. He actually performed the inspections.
Yeah, we had a case just historically. We had a case probably 5-6 years ago where somebody did like 200 of these per year or something. It was an astronomical number that didn't even do the inspection. So I just want to make sure that this wasn't that kind of situation. Thank you.
No, I think actually, and thank you for that. I think I actually reviewed that case that you're talking about. I do remember that, and in that case, the penalty was much more severe. But yeah, you're exactly right. And yes, he did perform the actual services.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have a motion?
I move that we accept the recommendation.
I second.
We have a motion and proper second. Ready for roll call.
This is Rick. I have one question.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. What was the number of inspections again?
Rick, it was 23.
So we're doing 2,300, right?
Correct. Yes. That's my recommendation anyway.
What was the previous number? I'm sorry, I missed it.
It was the same as you talking about case number 2 that we reviewed?
No, the one that we're just talking about. The first number is what you're recommending as a reduced fee, as a reduced penalty. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry.
This is the first review and recommendation. We hadn't had a previous recommendation before this one.
Okay. I was confused. I apologize. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Okay, ready for roll call vote.
Thank you, sir. If I could, real quick, just to clarify, Mr. Brickta, that was you, correct, that gave the second?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Roll call. Mr. Tibbs.
Yes.
Mr. Bursai.
Yes.
Mr. Brickta.
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Ms. Doss.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
And Mr. Waxer.
Yes.
Thank you.
Number 5, 2020079421. Respondent self-reported working on expired license. Respondent is licensed in numerous states and performed emergency engineering services after the March 2020 tornadoes that hit Middle Tennessee and Chattanooga. Respondent performed structural inspections on 3 separate occasions and prepared stamp reports for the same. It was noticed by a client that respondent's license had lapsed on April 30, 2018. Respondent immediately notified all clients and was issued a written reprimand by his employer. This was reviewed by Robert Campbell. Mitigating factors are self-reported, no history of discipline. Employer reprimanded and penalized the respondent. I don't have an aggravating factor here, but of course it's performing services on expired license. Recommendation is authorized civil penalty of $1,500 for practicing on expired license and pass the laws and rules exam.
Okay, thanks, Stuart. Do you want to add anything to that, Robert? Or any other
Yeah,
discussion?
just real quick, he did about I want to say 4 or 5 inspections on 3 separate days. Again, as Stuart read, this was during an emergency time, and I understand that should not take the registrant off the hook. However, sometimes when we run into the fire, sometimes we forget to do what we should have done. Also the respondent, as they stated, was also penalized by his employer. So I kind of looked at it as each day being a violation instead of each report that he wrote, which may be a little different than normal, because I thought that his employer penalizing him and reprimanding him, along with the fine, was enough of a deterrent to keep him from doing this again. So that was the rationale behind my decision.
Thanks, Robert. Any other discussion regarding that? If not, is there a motion?
This is Ricky. I will make a motion to approve the recommendation.
Hey, Brian, this is Alvin. I have a quick question when we get to the discussion after the second.
Okay. Who was that?
This is Rick Thompson. I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Discussion. Alvin?
Yeah, thank you very much. Robert, was this individual or his firm compensated for those services?
Sure. I mean, this was, I think they were paid by either insurance companies or homeowners to come in and do different types of inspections. And that's what was a little also probably mitigating Alton was, I don't know that some of the inspections may have been foundation, some roof, some others. So I don't know that he had total responsibility for every one of those reports. Maybe he had a partial responsibility, but yes, they were compensated.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure because I know that I think it's 62-2-109 involves the voluntary inspection of services, after a natural disaster, and it provides exemptions if they're doing it without compensation. But in this case, that wouldn't apply. So thank you, Robert. For that.
That's correct. Yes, sir. I looked at that. That's exactly correct.
All right, we have a motion and a proper second. Roll call vote. You ready for a roll call, Michael?
I'm sorry, I was on mute again. Let's see. Mr. Tibbs.
Yes.
Mr. Bursai.
Yes.
Mr. Brickta,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Ms. Doss,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Wagster.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Number 6, 2020079491. Complainant complains that the foundations of 2 manufactured homes have gaps due to leveling of new construction. Complainant further alleges that respondent made recommendations to prevent stormwater from entering the crawl space, and the recommendations failed. Also, respondent mistakenly pointed out that the recommendations were adequately completed in the report. The complainant states a subsequent report from another inspector shows water accumulation and no work has been completed. The respondent was hired by a manufacturer home company to perform soil compaction tests and make recommendations concerning a stormwater issue. The respondent made recommendations that a small swell be graded to divert stormwater and a positive drain be installed at the lowest point of the foundation in the crawl space. When respondent was notified of the work being completed, respondent verified the work through an inspector and notified the state fire marshal's office. Respondent states they have never had any contact with complainant except a letter asking if one of their inspectors left the crawl space door open. After review, it seems the complainant has more of an issue with the manufacturer, and there is no fault or errors found in the respondent's report or inspection. This was reviewed by Stephen King. Mitigating factors are no fault or errors of the respondent found. There are no aggravating factors, and recommendation is to close.
All right. Stephen, do you want to make any comments about this at all?
I think Stuart did a good job of explaining that. I didn't find any problem with the engineer's report, and I agree that it seems to be a conflict with the manufacturer rather than the engineer.
Okay, thanks a lot. Is there any other discussion or a motion?
I move we accept the report.
I'll second that move. Okay, we have a motion and a proper second. Ready for roll call vote.
Okay, that was Mr. Brickta who made the motion, seconded by Mr. Parker. If you all would please identify yourselves when making motions, that for the record, that would be excellent. Mr. Tibbs.
Yes.
Mr. Bursai.
Yes.
Mr. Brickta.
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Ms. Doss.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Wagster.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, number 7, 2020075451. Respondent self-reported a possible violation after accusation was made from a previous engineering company that respondent illegally used their original plans to receive bids on a project. Respondent was to prepare a bid tabulation form using the plans made by the previous company. No design changes or alterations were made, plans were not stamped, and respondent listed the previous company as the original designer on the plans. The plans were given to the owner in order to put out an RFQ for contractors to give unit prices. No violations were found since the respondent, as a successor registrant, did not stamp the original plans and only provided a bid tabulation form in order for the owner to obtain unit prices from contractors. This was reviewed by Stephen King. Mitigating factors is self-reported. The successor registrant did not stamp original plans from another registrant, and no violations were found. Recommendation is to close.
Stuart, this is Robert Campbell. I need to recuse myself, please.
Yes, sir.
This is Frank. I move that we close this one.
This is Ricky. I will second that.
Okay, that's a motion and proper second. Any discussion? If not, ready for roll call vote?
Sir, Mr. Tibbs,
Yes.
Mr. Burside,
Yes.
Mr. Bricktock,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell has recused himself. Ms. Doss,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and now the representations, number 8, 2016-053-951. This case has been going on for a long time, back and forth with negotiations with attorneys. And the new information that we found is respondent was diagnosed with an inoperable tumor on the spine earlier this year and has been in and out of intensive care. Unfortunately, the diagnosis was incorrect, and respondent actually suffered an aneurysm in the spinal cord at C2. Due to the misdiagnosis and time period to the correct diagnosis, respondent is currently paralyzed from the waist down. Treatment has been repressed due to COVID-19, and it is unlikely that therapy will begin for another 6 months or more due to the pandemic. Therapy will likely take years whenever it can start. Respondent is now on disability and cannot work. Due to this incapacity, the respondent has ceased practicing engineering, and the likelihood of returning to the industry is minimal. There were some contracts out there that they had to find licensed engineers and transfer all those jobs to them. The new recommendation is to close, or in the alternative, issue a letter of caution.
This is Rick Thompson. I move that we accept the motion.
Okay, so do we have a second?
This is Blair Parker. I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a proper second. Any more discussion?
This is Ricky. Just a question. The recommendation is close or I guess issue a letter of cautions. Which would this motion propose? Is a letter of caution included or just close?
I left that up to the board members. I mean, I would recommend just to close it.
This is Rick Thompson. I accept that motion to close it, and I make that motion that we close it.
Okay. Thanks, Rick.
And this is Blair. I approve of that change and approve that motion. Second that motion.
Okay, it's motion and proper second. Ready for roll call vote?
Mr. Tibbs,
Yes.
Mr. Burside,
Yes.
Mr. Bricktock,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Wagster.
Yes.
Thank you.
At number 9, 2020056571. This case where the respondent was maintaining a business name with landscape architecture and a website using Landscape Architect, and was at the time claiming to have an active registration in Tennessee. What we were showing was that his comedy application was still in progress. The new information, we've had numerous conversations with the respondent, and the research into the respondent's comedy application showed the application in progress just before the last board meeting in October. Actually, he became registered in Tennessee on August 18th, 2020. After these numerous discussions with the respondent, it was discovered and determined that respondent did mention on his website that he was only registered in Georgia following the title on his About page and before he was registered in Tennessee. Once the respondent became registered,
Stuart, I'm sorry, this is Michael. I just want to, pardon the interruption. I just got a message from Mr. Tibbs. While he still shows as being on, he says that his computer has died and he has lost the feed. I'll leave it up to you. Should we continue with this synopsis, or would you like to wait just a minute while he gets back online?
I guess we can wait a couple more minutes. That's fine.
Michael, this is Maria. I can text him the call in, so it's not dependent on my computer. If I can do that real quick.
Sure, go right ahead. Sorry, folks. Sorry for the interruption.
I was almost finished, Michael.
Mark that spot.
I am back, Michael. I'm sorry about that.
Not a problem. Thank you for letting us know. Stuart was almost about to finish the synopsis here. So Stuart, go ahead and carry on.
Recommendation is to close. Thank you. So after the discussions, I'll go back to that part where after numerous discussions, it was discovered that and determined that the respondent did mention on his website that it was only registered in Georgia, following the title on his About page and before he was registered in Tennessee. Once respondent became registered in Tennessee on August 18, 2020, respondent revised the website to show he was registered in Tennessee and Georgia. There is a rule as an exemption, which is Rule 0120-01-.03. The following items are not considered offering to practice architecture, engineering, or landscape architecture, provided that the architect, engineer, or landscape architect is registered in another jurisdiction using the title engineer, architect, landscape architect, or any appellation thereof, provided that the individual using the title is registered in another jurisdiction and clearly specifies the jurisdiction in which they are registered following the title, so as not to mislead the public regarding their credentials. There are no indications that respondent ever tried to mislead the public or be dishonest in his credentials. Respondent has been very cooperative and respectful in this matter. Further, respondent's work in landscape architecture while under his new business name using landscape architecture was being performed in Georgia before his Tennessee registration. Another thing I'd like to add is that when we looked at this comedy application showing that the application was in progress before the last meeting, for some reason it did not pull up as him being registered at that time, because that would have eliminated the need to remove any type of appellation because he was actually registered at that time and properly registered. I don't know why it came up as in progress or did not show him to be properly registered. That may have been the fault of me looking at the wrong thing, but he was properly registered. So at this point, we would just make a recommendation to close this.
Okay, Stuart, any questions? If no questions, is there a motion?
I make a motion to close per recommendation.
This is Ben. I second that.
Okay, that's a motion and a proper second. Ready for roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. Tibbs.
Yes.
Mr. Burside.
Yes.
Mr. Bricktop.
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes, sorry about that.
Ms. Doss.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Waxter.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
that completes the legal report. Hope everybody has safe and happy holidays.
Thanks. All right, Michael, I guess we're ready for the director's report.
Okay, I just had a weird moment where everything on my screen disappeared, so I had to find which pages to be on. Thank you. Let's see, we're moving into the director's report. I would like to point out to everyone the most recent financial statements, just for your reference. These are through the end of September of this year. You will see that there's a current net surplus of $136,000, $136,061 to be exact. And we have a net reserve of $2.4 million, rounding. That'd be 2.447041 exactly. Just wanted you all to be aware of this and see if there's any questions. Okay, hearing none. We have one item of clarification that we have come up with. This involves CLARB records and requirements. Kara is on the line. Kara Evans, who is on the staff here, is on the line, and she is somebody who had worked with this gentleman who had, his license had lapsed. He had missed, he's a landscape architect, license had lapsed. He missed the grace period and had to go through the reapply process. Now he, as a result of this, he had, well, let me back up. He's only been licensed in the state of Tennessee. And as a result of this, there was no CLARB file for him to be transferred. So he had to go through the steps of applying with CLARB to get a record, and then had to go through the reapply process with us. I think the question here is, and the clarification we're looking for from the board, is there alternative acceptable forms of verification that this gentleman or any person from this point on may be able to apply to this reapplication process in the absence of, or in the same situation in terms of there's no CLARB record to be sent? Does that make sense? And two, I would love to hear questions or comments. Mr. Parker, as the resident landscape architect, do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, I would love to send this back to the landscape architecture committee when a situation like this takes place. I'm not sure of any other way we can do it other than that, and then take it back to the full board.
Okay.
This is Robert. I agree with that. I think that's what that committee is supposed to be there, is to kind of adjudicate some of these different things.
Okay. Thank you very much. Then we will schedule a committee meeting of the landscape architects prior to the next regularly scheduled full board meeting. I will coordinate with Mr. Parker to get that taken care of.
That sounds good. I really appreciate you all taking care of this one case, because it was really an odd kind of situation, wasn't it?
It's the first I've heard of it, and I believe Kara was in the same boat. But we got it. We were able to get it done, and we just want to see if we can work that process out with you all on the committee, so that we can have a more clear set of instruction should this situation ever come up again.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
Okay. The next item I have for you all is really, it's an update. This is just to let you all know that we have a rulemaking hearing coming up at the state legislature next week, and this is the PDH rulemaking hearing that we had discussed a long time ago. All I wanted you all to know is that we will be going before the Government Operations Committee next week to give them our position on why these rule changes have been accepted and proposed. We've had a series of pre-calls with some of the legislators, and we will be having more calls with legislators to establish points of contact and kind of give them a heads up prior to the rulemaking hearing. This will be on December 9th, I want to say. And I expect if I'm wrong on that, Maria will jump in and tell me. I want to say it's December 9th, and we will be at the Government Operations Committee in that afternoon. The last item I have on my report is a conversation about certificates. What we have, and these, I think everyone here, or every profession represented by this board, receives some form of certificate from us. We have recently, I guess really within this last year, things have changed, and these certificates used to be hand delivered. They're through the professional societies. We're currently, I don't believe these professional societies are having in-person meetings, much like we're not having in-person meetings. And here's the long and short of it is they're a very odd shaped size that also requires an odd shaped envelope, which are some relatively expensive. And we would like to make the certificates a little bit more of a normal size. Instead of being 11.5 by 17, we would like to make them a bit more manageable in terms of printing and mailing, and make them 8 by 10s. And that would also allow us to have them printed through our printing service and mailed through our service, and thus saving the professional societies the postage and also reducing the overall cost to us. I would ask any questions or comments regarding this.
Hey, Michael, it's Robert. I understand that part of it. I just, we've had that certificate for so long in that form. I mean, I reckon there's kind of a historical attachment to that size and, that kind of thing. So I don't know if there's another way around that where we could email the PDF to the registrant and so they could print it off on that size, or what the situation might be.
Actually, Robert, that would be, I think, the most ideal situation for us, because that wouldn't cost anything, and then the person who is the recipient would then be able to print it more or less any size they want. I would be completely on board with emailing instead of actually USPS.
This is Rick. I agree with what we're talking about. That's a great idea, Robert. I think as long as we're able to send a proper file so that the duplication is as rich as we get through the mail. I mean, it's a very impressive certificate. So I just don't want to make sure it's not some, I get things from other states that, are just really not all that impressive. And I think that's important. So, but I agree with that. That's a great idea. Thank you.
This is Blair. of the various states I'm licensed in, I think Tennessee's is the most handsome. I just think it's a nice looking certificate. And I'm not real wild about reducing the size of the certificate. I also know that when people receive their certificate, it's a big deal, as it should be. And I'm not real wild about sending it via, in the email or whatever. I think it coming from your professional society or from directly from the state, I think that's a very nice thing. So I'm not real wild about. I realize the additional cost, and I don't know what that is, but I wonder if we can absorb that cost. That's my take on it.
Well, let's see. I couldn't really speak to the total cost of postage. At this point, I believe we're still hand delivering these certificates to the professional societies, and they are handling the postage costs. I know for us that we have to go out and find these envelopes. We now have a contract with I can't remember who our contract is with. It's Staples or Office Depot, and they don't have this size, so we have to go out and special order the envelopes that are cardboard, so that these certificates don't get bent, and they don't fit in mailboxes, and they obviously don't bend. So that's why I think we're trying to make the switch to a little bit more of a traditional or manageable size in terms of certificates, so that we can, in the absence of being able to hand them off in person, we can mail them so that they don't take damage.
Michael, this is Ben. Can you tell me what these certificates are?
Sure. Real quick, Mr. Ridley, your camera is on. We're going no cameras just to make sure that everyone's broadband is able to carry and stay up and running.
Anyway, so.
No problem. Mr. Brichta, these certificates are certificates of completion for the exams that all of our licensees take. Wanda Phillips is on the line. Wanda, is there anything you would like to add?
No, everyone that gets registered in Tennessee, they get a wall certificate. It's not their license. It's just something decorative that they have that they like to put on the wall in their office or whatever. Normally, the ones that pass the PE exam, they are picked up by TSPE and given out at their chapter meetings. But now with COVID and everything, I'm not even sure they're having the chapter meetings. But everyone that gets registered in Tennessee, whether it's exam or comedy, they all get a wall certificate.
I'd be happy to do a little bit more. We obviously have certificates here aplenty, and we have a large stack that have been printed already. Our biggest delay right now, like I said, is finding the envelopes that we can use so that these aren't damaged in transit. I'd be happy to do a little bit more digging if we can to help put some numbers around the cost of sending something that's 8 by 10 or 8.5 by 11, I think is the standard. The standard as opposed to 11.5 by 17. If that would please the board.
Hey, Michael, it's Robert again. Did I hear that all these certificates are picked up by the societies of some sort, or no? Are you mailing quite a few?
We mail most of them. Only the ones that pay when they pass the PE exam, the April and the October exam,
Right.
they are picked up by TSPE and given out at the chapter meetings. They're picked up twice a year.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
I think
they're
that
mailed out.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I mean, otherwise they're mailed out. All the comedy ones are mailed, but only TSPE picks up the ones twice a year that take the April and the October exams and pass.
Right. My thought is, I mean, for that initial license, kind of to echo what Rick said, I mean, for that initial license, I think it's nice to have that quality. And if they're being picked up anyway, I mean, maybe we can just put them in a, you know, have something to carry them in to give them out as individual things, like being in an envelope or something. I just, that initial license is pretty cool. So, if you're doing a comedy one, maybe the PDF works out fine, or something else. But that initial one is kind of special.
And
Chairman
one issue
Tibbs, may I make a comment?
Sorry.
Chairman Tibbs, or Michael, am I allowed to make a comment? This is Casey Anderson.
I guess so. Michael, I guess we'll out for the public. Proper.
I think this one may be relevant. Casey does manage one of the organizations that picks up and hand delivers. So I'd be open to hearing her comment regarding this if you are, sir.
Open up public, and Casey, you have the floor.
Thanks very much. Sorry to interrupt, but this is Casey Anderson with the Tennessee Society of Professional Engineers, and we are the ones that pick up in person to hand deliver the new PEs. And Mr. Campbell, you were asking about continuing to do that. I will go ahead and say that we end up mailing about 3/4 of those. We do invite everyone who's a new PE to come to their local chapter meeting to receive those. And typically we have a board member or one of you all or a former board member talk about ethics and all of that stuff. There are creative ways that we can continue to honor those new PEs without having their initial license. It often takes a long time for from the time that they pass the PE for the certificates to be done to begin with, and then to be at the next scheduled meeting and for us to get them to Chattanooga or Knoxville or wherever. So we are happy to pivot to something different, but we do end up mailing a significant number of them. So I would hate for them not to be in those hard envelopes once they return to us, for those that we need to mail. But we will not stop honoring the new PEs if the certificate situation changes, if that helps. Thank you.
This is Rick Thompson. If you send those to the societies, I am a member of the AIA and have been associated with them for almost 30 years. But all of the architects are not AIA members, especially new architects. So I don't think that's going to work for us as architects. And I'll let excuse me. Pardon me, I got choked on my coffee there. But I just don't know if that's going to work. I think just from a personal perspective, the three things on my wall that are very important to me that are very nicely done are my college diploma, my architectural license, and also my appointment to this board. And those are very, they're the larger format, and I understand that there's a financial impact on that. But, if I think an 8.5 by 11 is tacky. And I certainly would not vote for a smaller format if that's going to be the situation that we try to implement. I think either we stick with what we have, or we consider maybe what Mr. Campbell suggested, that we do you know, and again, I don't know what type of file that you would send to have somebody be able to do that, but that initial licensing it's very important to us as professionals, you know, because that after graduation, that's your goal is to get your license, unless you're not sincere about it. So I think we need to give it some additional consideration. I don't. I know you've got a stack of them that you've got to get out already anyway, and maybe we could talk about this once we have a better idea of the cost associated with it, how it impacts our budget, and if it's a number that we can continue to absorb, like Mr. Parker said, then maybe we'll just leave it like it is. But I'm not comfortable making that decision today. And that's me personally. So. Thank you.
Michael, this is Frank. I have one question. You keep saying 17 and a half, 11 by 17 and a half. Is it 17 and a half or 17? And the reason I ask is 11 by 17 is a normal ledger size, and there are usually envelopes made for that size.
I took a ruler to it this morning. I can remeasure it, but that's what I came up with when I measured it this morning, which struck me as odd as well. So that's why I keep saying odd shape.
Maybe we just trim a half inch off of it.
Oh well, you know, we could get a cutter, I suppose. What I'm hearing is I will go back to
really quick, Michael, if you don't mind, since we gave Casey an opportunity, I just want to make sure that none of the other professional organizations want to speak up. Ashley or anyone else, if you guys want to speak up about anything, make any comments.
This is Ashley Cates with AIA Tennessee. We do not send out the certificates. I would love to see a copy of one of them after hearing about how pretty they are. We don't send out the certificates. We just let the board handle that. But I'm happy to talk about it, assist in any way possible. Rick made very good points about the fact that not all architects are AIA members, and so we recognize newly licensed architects at our conference and give them an award, and that didn't happen this year, and local components aren't meeting. So I'm happy to talk with staff or any of you about some ideas and how to keep the importance and the recognition where it needs to be, but also, if there's any difficulties getting it out. So just let me know how we can help.
Thanks, Ashley. I'm not suggesting that we stop mailing these certificates whatsoever. We do, TSPE does get them in hand, and everybody else gets them via mail. So I'm not suggesting at all we stop mailing certificates. I'm just questioning the size and manageability in terms of, we get a fair amount back that are damaged, that are redone and resent. And so I'm just looking at making it a little bit more manageable in terms of size. That's it. But what I'm hearing is that I will go back to the folks who do our printing and mailing here and get a little bit more information in terms of overall cost and represent. So I'm perfectly happy to table this discussion until a further date.
And that will be my recommendation, that we do table this discussion and review this at our next meeting.
Okay. Well, with that, I have nothing else for you from a director's report. Would move to the, are there any questions for me or anything that you all would like to bring up that you may think I've missed?
All right, thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
I'll move on to the committee reports, and I think we just had the engineering report today.
Thank you, Brian. This is Alton for the record. Just want everybody to know that the engineering committee has been earning the massive amounts of money that we're paid for the performance of this job. We have met not only yesterday in the engineering committee meeting for about 3.5 hours, but we also met in an interim meeting duly published and advertised on November 13th. The important, all the issues are important, obviously, but the predominant issue that we were discussing is the alternative path to licensures, and in particular, the focus on the engineering technology degrees. Right now, we think that Tennessee is one of only 9 states that don't offer some sort of alternative path to licensure for individuals holding degrees that graduate from an ETAC accredited university, not an EAC accredited university. There is a concern both among the professional societies a little bit and among the engineering committee that this could be perceived as blocking or restricting a path to licensure, and we're concerned about the perception that may create at the legislative level. We know, and Michael gave us a report yesterday, Missouri may be the most recent state to invoke an alternative path to licensure. That initiative apparently was not directed by the Missouri board, but instead by their legislature. And we most assuredly don't want to put ourselves in that position. We have reviewed information that has been provided by NICET, which is the National Institute for Certification of Engineering Technologies, on what they consider the parallels, I suppose, between the ETAC curriculum and an EAC curriculum. We've also looked at Dr. Smith's analysis of the difference between the engineering curriculum and the engineering technology curriculum and the deficiencies. Obviously, there's a significant difference between those two pieces of information. Ricky has graciously agreed to reach out to an individual in Mississippi who serves on the Mississippi Board for Engineering and Surveyors, who's also a professor who has a significant amount of history and information related to the difference between EAC and ETAC curriculums and the associated preparation. And let me go back, and the overarching responsibility that we feel is and our focus, we know, has to remain on the protection of the public's health, safety, and welfare, and whatever we consider or whatever we offer as a potential alternative here. So again, going back, Michael was checking with NCAAS on their evaluation of the differences between the two. Right now, there are 9 universities in the state of Tennessee that offer engineering technology degrees. Of those 9, there are 3, the University of Memphis, University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, and Tennessee Tech, that offer both engineering degrees and engineering technology degrees. We also had input from Casey that we're always very grateful for, who recommended that we develop a proposal that if we come up with an alternative path to licensure for engineering people holding engineering technology degrees that she can provide to the engineering community, we suspect that there would be a significant amount of resistance to that. But again, it's incumbent on us to get input from our constituents in this, and we would lean heavily on Casey to help us both with format and with the delivery of that to the engineering community. we know at the end of the day that we're still protected by the fact that any individual that's pursuing professional licensure still has to sit for and pass the PE exam, whether they have whether they've gone through an ETAC curriculum or an EAC curriculum. So, and to bring everything to a close on that, yesterday we developed a 3-component initial to-do list. Number one was that we request a meeting with appropriate representatives from those 3 universities that offer both curriculums. We would want officials from or administrators from both colleges, the Engineering Technology College and the Engineering College, so that we could have their input and their understanding of the difference in the curriculums and what it prepares their graduates to do, whether it's design work or the implementation of design work. And then the second item is to identify individuals that are in the that work with either engineering firms or industry or construction that hold engineering technology degrees, to find out more about the level of practice that they're performing, to understand more about whether they're actually participating in design, or is it, again, more implementation of what an engineer designs. And then the third item, at least in this initial list, is for Michael to reach out to some of the other states to find out why. Why did you do this, and how did you determine what additional, I guess, either education or experience would be required with somebody with an ETAC degree? How did you settle on that particular criteria, so that we can understand that better? We are meeting, and we will meet regularly. We will meet once again before our February meeting, hopefully sometime around mid-January. And in that mid-January meeting, we hope to be able to interview the representatives from the universities, and if we can find them, individuals within either engineering firms, industry, or construction that are engineering technology degree holders that are doing at some level design work. We also discussed decoupling. Each of the 4 members of the engineering committee are not opposed to decoupling, as long as it's accompanied with the 4 years of experience and taking and passing the PE. But drafting the legislation or drafting a plan for decoupling may be a little more challenging. And one of the things that I will do, Casey, I'm putting you on notice that I'm going to contact you after this meeting to get some help with that, to determine how the professional societies may be able to help us with that. We also reviewed, I think there were 6 applications for licensures. We were able to resolve all of the questions associated with those. And finally, there was one other issue that we discussed related to an individual who had an engineering technology degree, who wanted to pursue licensure in the state. We discussed and resolved that issue as well. Mr. Chairman, that is my report, unless others want to add to it.
Thanks, Alton. Does anyone else on the committee have any comments, or anyone outside the committee have any questions? Okay, seeing, hearing none, moving on to old business.
Mr. Chairman, this is Michael. If I would interject just for a moment, I would like to point out that professional society member Nathan Ridley has joined us. He did miss the earlier report time. I thought maybe we might want to hear from him before we move on to old business.
Absolutely, thanks. Nathan, you have the floor.
Wow. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Nathan Ridley here on behalf of the Tennessee chapter of the American Society of Landscape Architects. Merry Christmas, everyone. The world could use a little Christmas this year, I'm thinking. Back to what I'm supposed to talk about. According to Ashley and Casey, we've just come off an election, unless y'all have been living in a cave. At the state level, fortunately, ours has been a little calmer. The margins for the presidential election and our U.S. Senate election were not disputable. In the General Assembly, we have 2 new state senators. One might be a familiar face who had served in the state house, Paige Wiley from West Tennessee, and then a new face will be Heidi Campbell here in Davidson County, who defeated Steve Dickerson in the closest legislative race in the state. Got 10 new House members scattered across the state. Good folks. Looks like legislative session will start on the 12th of January. It's very that's a long-term plan right now. Historically, that's very traditional, and I'm sure they'll convene. I think they have to convene then, but after that, it's sort of up in the air. I think there's some differences between the 2 houses on how they should approach that. But I suspect they will get organized that week of the 12th. The speakers will continue to be the same: Cameron Sexton in the House and Randy McNally in the Senate. The committees will be a little different because you've got some chairs who did not seek re-election, or in the case of Senator Dickerson, who chaired the Senate State and Local Committee, was not re-elected. So we'll keep up with that. Just back to the professional society bit, just a little bit. The landscape architects have a new executive director, Erin Tharp from Morristown. We're pleased to welcome her. She's been very active in our group. She's a licensed landscape architect, and we look forward to working with her. And we also wish well to Kate Horton, who has served us with grace under pressure. I've called her the landscape architect den mother for the past few years. She's made us behave well, and we will miss her. But that's all I have. Michael, thanks very much again. I apologize for tardiness. I'm a creature of habit. My calendar has y'all at 9 o'clock on certain months for the next, and I'll have to go back to adjust that. My apologies, but thank you for the time. That's all I have, folks. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Nathan. Michael, I'm going to old business.
Yes, and I would like to point out these items are here as a matter of old business. You all had charged me with making sure they stayed on the agenda so that the site would not be lost on them. Whether there's discussion or not, that's completely up to you all.
Anybody have any comments about that you want to talk about? Are you mentioning this in all 3 of these together, or should I say it one by one, or do you have a preference, Michael, about that? Or
I don't. I think that they could be, if there is conversation that anybody would like to have regarding any one of these 3, I don't think they need to be in any express order. But if anybody would like to discuss these matters of old business, I'd say feel free to do so.
I'll do it this way, to be fair to everybody. First off, does anyone want to discuss anything about decoupling?
Mr. Chairman, this is Alton. From the engineering committee perspective, our report, the report that I just gave had our updating information on both decoupling and on the ETAC as an alternate path to licensure.
Okay. So that's probably a technology degree. Does anyone else have anything they want to mention about that either? And the last on definitions. All right, looks like we're ready for new business, Michael.
I don't have any new business to offer you all. Do you all, is there any new business that anyone would like to bring up?
Michael, this is Frank. Or Brian, I'd like to go back to the definitions. I know Kathy Ware was the chair of the definitions committee, and so she probably needs to have a replacement.
Okay, I will be making a note of that. We'll convene the definitions committee prior to the next scheduled board meeting to take care of those issues.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Rick. Frank.
Hi, Michael, I'm sorry, Brian, this is Robert. Michael, that may be something to add to the engineering committee, because I think we would want to decide who our representative is to that whenever we get together again, unless one of the engineers wants to volunteer.
Okay, I'll make a note of that as well. You bring up one other item. Alton, I don't know if you mentioned the election that took place in your report. Did you, or did I just miss it?
No, I am remiss in my duties. I want to congratulate and thank Steve King, our newly elected chairman for the engineering committee. I'm really glad to pass the baton to Steve, and I'm grateful to him for assuming that role and responsibility.
All right. Well, Michael, I guess I'll open up to anybody. Does anybody else have any other business you want to cover?
Brian, this is Ricky. I've got an item. We mentioned it in the engineering committee meeting yesterday that we've got 2 openings now for the Middle Tennessee engineer position and the West Tennessee associate engineer position. And if appropriate, I thought Michael could maybe just give an update on where we stand on those, just so we're aware of what's going on and maybe some time expectations of filling those slots.
Sure thing. I can tell you what I know, and that is that we had received a number of nominees for both positions. I want to say we had six total, and all 6 of them could be, or interchangeable, could be considered for either or position. So right now we are, I want to say that we're very close to having somebody named for Middle Tennessee and the associate position from West Tennessee. I believe the Middle Tennessee individual would be coming from a firm located in the Nashville area, and the West Tennessee individual will be coming from a firm located in the Memphis area. That is really all I have to offer at this point. I have sent an email to the folks in the governor's office who are responsible for appointments and vetting the potential appointees to see what our timeline is. I hope that we can have this wrapped up by the end of the year, but I see no reason why we couldn't possibly have this wrapped up before our next meeting at the very latest. Obviously, after this meeting concludes, there will be no meeting until February. So whenever this person gets, or whenever these people get appointed officially, we will do our best to make sure that we get their oaths and get them sworn in so that we can offer them an orientation before the next meeting, and then we'll make the formal introductions. I'm sorry I don't have more to offer you in terms of names or actual appointees, but once I have that in hand, I will get that to you.
that helps greatly. Thank you for that report, Michael.
Not a problem.
Anybody have any other questions or comments?
Brian, this is Michael. If I could, I would ask that immediately following adjournment, per a discussion that was had at the last meeting, I have the staff, many of the staff of the A&E board are on right now, and I believe it was requested that we all just get together for a quick message of thanks right after this meeting for the staff and the work that they've done throughout the year.
All right, then. Well, let's adjourn and get on to some happy news then. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
This is Robert, so moved.
This is Rick. I second that.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Moving on to appreciation, and I'm no longer chair. Just let it go. Whoever takes the lead on this.